massive project to weaponize the atmosphere was scrubbed from public records in 1974. This wasn't just a theory about weather control. It was an active military operation known as Project Blue. The data didn't just disappear into thin air. It was reclassified under a more secretive header to hide its progress. This is where the real story begins. Scientists in the late 1960s realized that the atmosphere was a battlefield. They weren't looking for rain or sun. They were looking for ways to manipulate chemical concentrations at scale. Imagine a hangar filled with heavy machinery and metal canisters. These containers held specific particulates designed to interact with high-altitude moisture. The goal was localized atmospheric mutation. They wanted to create zones where weather could be dictated by command. This changed everything because it turned the sky into a programmable grid. Every chemical added had a specific, calculated purpose. Some were meant to reflect sunlight away from certain areas. Others were designed to trap heat in others. The military saw the atmosphere as a strategic resource. They viewed weather patterns as hurdles to be cleared or weapons to be deployed. If you could control the humidity of a valley, you could ground an entire fleet. They began testing these compounds in remote desert locations first. These zones were perfect for high-risk experimentation without public scrutiny. The chemicals were designed to stay suspended in the upper atmosphere for months. They didn't just fall like snow, they hung like invisible ghosts. This persistence was key to their long-term strategy of regional control. One lead researcher, a man whose name is now redacted from most files, kept meticulous logs. He noted how the chemicals reacted with specific isotopes in the air. These notes were later hidden from public view. They were moved into high-security archives and guarded by heavy locks. Why did they hide these specific findings? Because the chemistry worked better than anyone expected. By 1972, Project Blue was achieving results that shocked the observers. They could create localized fog banks in seconds using aerosol sprays. They could stall storm fronts for hundreds of miles. It wasn't just science, it was a tactical revolution. The transition from theory to application happened faster than they planned. Then came the shift in 1974 that changed everything forever. The project was officially scrubbed from public records and rebranded. But the chemicals didn't stop being used by the people who knew them. They were quietly handed over to private industrial interests. These companies began incorporating these same compounds into commercial applications today. You can see the fingerprints of Project Blue in modern atmospheric management. They aren't just looking at weather anymore. They are managing it. The transition from military use to corporate ownership was seamless. When we look at current weather anomalies, something strange happens. Certain zones show patterns that match 1970s experimental parameters exactly. These locations often mirror the specific chemical concentrations found in the Project Blue files. It isn't a coincidence of nature, it's a legacy of intent. Think about the chemicals used for soil stabilization and industrial cooling. Many of these were just rebranded versions of the original Project Blue seeds. The transition from war to commerce was a way to keep the technology active without the scrutiny of public oversight. They didn't stop the science, they just changed the label on the jar. If you look at the atmospheric data over the last 50 years, there are spikes. These peaks occur in specific geographic zones that match old military test sites. The chemicals still linger in the upper atmosphere, waiting for a command. They remain active components of our modern environment. They didn't just want to change the weather, they wanted to own the sky. By moving the research into private hands, they avoided public outcry over atmospheric tampering. This is how they kept the program alive while technically closing the books on it. The technology remained, but the military uniform was replaced by a corporate logo. We see these patterns in extreme drought cycles and sudden localized cooling. These events often align with the specific chemical signatures identified in declassified reports. The evidence is hidden in the data points that most people ignore. They are looking for anomalies that don't fit standard climate models. When they find them, they find the fingerprints of Project Blue. The chemicals were designed to be stable and persistent. This meant they stayed in the atmosphere for decades rather than years. Some compounds were even engineered to react only under specific electromagnetic conditions. This created a dormant system that could be activated at any time. It is like an invisible switch buried in the high-altitude air. The researchers knew the risks of public exposure very well. They realized that if people saw what they were doing, the pushback would be massive. They didn't want to explain why they were seeding the clouds with heavy metals and particulates. So, they built a wall of secrets around their work. This wall was made of classified folders and non-disclosure agreements. When the project was officially